Loud. Okay, so we're recording. So hey everybody, I'm Brent with Fly Tying for Beginners. We have Andrew Marshall with us. Third time's the charm. First time we had to cancel because those wildfires were threatening Andrew's house, and so he had to postpone in case he had to bail. And then the second time I had to bail because I threw my back out and I couldn't even sit, and I'm actually still kind of struggling from that. So tonight's discussion, we're going to be talking about fly tying material and the pros and cons. What do we say? What do we call it, Andrew?
Color, texture, and purpose.
Yep. Color, texture, and purpose. So, so make sure you guys ask questions on. If you have questions on, can I swap this for that, and how does that kind of work? So, that's kind of the focus of this. If you guys are watching it on the recording, after it's all said and done, please make sure you add a comment down in the comment section below, and just put at Andrew Marshall so you make sure. So he gets tagged in there, and then he'll be happy to answer your questions, kind of like we've done on the last ones. So anyway, without further ado, we're going to turn it over to Andrew. So Andrew.
Hey guys, okay. So the idea, what I'm trying to do before I jump into this, is for the new fly tyers is to show you different ways of looking at the materials you have and looking at patterns, so that if you're looking at a pattern and you don't have what they want, you can look at your materials and maybe come up with an acceptable substitute that'll do the job that you want it to do. Okay. Back when I first started fly tying, I was extremely hidebound. I'd look at a pattern, and if I didn't have what it wanted, I didn't tie the pattern. Okay. It took a while before I realized that there's more to a pattern than just what it says. Okay. We use the materials that we use for a purpose other than just color, although sometimes color is important. But usually there's a purpose for it. So taking a look at fur, three things you got to think about fur is that there's the color, of course, there's the texture of the fur and the length of the fur and all that kind of stuff. What are you trying to accomplish? So dry flies. We take okay, so let's say you're trying to tie an Adams, and I've got a couple of Adamses here, different Adams, just so we refresh what an Adams might be. This is female Adams here. Can we see that? Yeah. Okay, there we go. I can see it. Does everybody see that?
Yep, I got it.
Yes.
Okay, so what we've got there is a muskrat body. This is a female, so it's a little tuft of chartreuse fur at the back. There's actually sheep's wool. I used to use sheep's wool a lot when I was a kid because that's what I had most available. Until somebody asked me, why don't we use sheep's wool for dry flies? The answer, of course, is, have you ever seen a sheep swim? Right? Sheep don't swim, they just sink. Okay. Tradition has it we tend to use aquatic animals for the most part for our dry flies because the oils and stuff like that they have, the natural oils, tends to keep the material from sinking as quickly. Now, I'm not so sure about that because most of our fur these days is so highly processed. We get scraps of fur coats and things. Here's a nice piece of beaver right there. It's still on the leather. And then if you're buying packets of dubbing, it's even more processed. So I don't know if it has the oils and stuff in it that the natural fur would have. So I don't know how valid that thing is, but it is a tradition anyway. Color. Now, I personally prefer to use fur as opposed to, or natural fur as opposed to synthetics. I prefer to have my fur on the skin as opposed to in packets so that I can see things like color and texture. Okay. This is a piece of beaver. You can see, this is from his back. You can see, I hope, the pretty uniform there. He's got gray with tan tips. He's got kind of longish, long guard hairs there. Okay. If I was going to use this I'd use this for a wet fly because there's a subtle kink to the underfur, and that kink is going to trap air. It's going to give a subtle movement, especially on a dead drift nymph or a dead drift wet fly. Okay. It's not going to be as good in a dry fly application. And you wouldn't want to leave these guard hairs in there either. going back to, okay, the muskrat, going back to the Adams, here's your muskrat. Okay, now you notice how blue, dark blue that underfur is there, okay? But you notice, I'm going to turn this around here so you can see the back of it. You notice on that underfur, there are 3 actual colors, okay? You've got the blue of the underfur itself that has got brown tips, which is why when you look at the animal, when he's swimming, he's a brown animal instead of a blue one. You see what I'm saying? Because what we're looking at when you look at the animal when he's swimming is you're looking at the tips of his fur, okay? And of course, then he's got his guard hairs here. Now, what that has to do with the dry fly, with the Adams, for example, is so they want a blue body. Well, what they're wanting you to do is to take, most of us would take and pull off a tuft of that and just dub it in. Well, when you do that, you're going to have a blue body with a hint of brown in it. Okay, now that might work for you where you're at, but it might not work somewhere else. Okay, so you take and trim off that brown, now you've got a straight blue body. Okay, leaving the guard hairs in would give it a rougher look to it. 3 different things you can do with just one little patch of fur. Does that make sense? It's all about how that's one of the reasons I like having fur on the skin as opposed to in a bag, is because it gives you the ability to look at, like here's a nice piece of beaver, to look at what you can do with it rather than just what the pattern says that you are supposed to with it, if that makes sense. You know, because I can get different effects just by taking and, okay, so there's a tuft of the beaver. I can get different effects by taking and, what do I do with my scissors? Trimming off the tips there. Now that will dub out blue. Okay, if I take the same tuft and, let's see here, take and pull that out there and leave the guard hairs in and the tips there, that's going to dub out more of a, I hope you can see the colors there. That's going to be browner. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah.
So it's all a matter of trying to free you from having to buy multiple packets of everything, because you've got an animal that has it all there for you to a certain extent, if that makes any sense. One of our favorite animals that we like to use, very useful animal, is hare's ears. It's a component in March Browns. It's a component in hare's ears nymphs. There's a rather chewed on hare's ear here. Okay. We generally tend to use the fur from the ears because it's short and coarse and has a lot of spring to it. It makes a really nice buggy look on the nymphs. It's very dark color underneath there, even though it looks brown on the surface, very dark colored, almost black underneath there. Okay, but if you take, the reason I picked this chewed up one is you can see, just looking at it, the different colors and textures of what's underneath the guard hairs that we generally see when we're looking at a piece of fur. Okay, and this is what I'm trying to show you as newbies, newbies, is to look below the surface of your fur, to look below the surface of your feathers. What's underneath there that can be used that a lot of the time you wouldn't think of, because the pattern says you need muskrat, for example, and you don't have it. Well, there's a perfectly good substitute right underneath here. It's the same color. At least that's what it looks like. So before I get into how to tell the different colors, show off here hares. This is an actual, hares are one of the most useful animals I can think of. This here is a hare's skin, along with the hare's mask. Let's get one that isn't so chewed up. Here we go. There's his mask right there. Okay. And I don't have hare's feet. It's one of the few things that I either I've got them somewhere around here, I don't have them, but I couldn't find them today. But I mean, you've got an animal there that has all of the different colors and textures you could possibly want. If I was confined to 2 animals, in terms of my furs, it would be muskrat and a hare. And failing a hare, wild rabbit is close enough. It's just a softer texture, okay? You've got textures, everything from really short, dense, spiky. I mean, even on the mask here, you've got soft and fluffy. Okay, this is kind of a cream color. You can see here, you can trim the ginger off and have a nice ginger looking fly. This is really good for Cahills, where you want kind of a more gingery looking thing. If you want to really pale it out, make it real pale, you've got the silvery here. This is just on a mask. Underneath there, you've got the most beautiful, that tiny little bit. I don't know if you can see that tiny little bit of silver gray there. Okay. And just in this one patch, you've got 3 different colors and 2 different textures. And of course, you got whiskers you can use for tail. Make sense? All right. So one of my favorite furs, actually, after hare, is bobcat. All right, and this is going to lead me into feathers.
I was going to say before you jump into bobcat, because that's kind of a rare. I'd say it's a little bit more rare of a pelt to obtain, and quite frankly, I've never even heard of anybody using bobcat. Is there anybody that has any questions this far and wants to ask anything? Kind of what Andrew's been covering so far. You feel free to jump in and.
Yeah, I don't mind being interrupted.
Something.
Jump in.
Okay.
Going.
Okay, continue. Bobcat it is.
All right, bobcat. All right, so let me introduce you to one of my this is my go-to all-purpose nymph. It outfishes the gold-ribbed hare's ears nymph 3-to-1. Okay, there. I hope that's not too fuzzy. There's the back of it. It's comprised of the body is bobcat fur with the guard hairs stripped out. The thorax is bobcat fur with all of the extra guard hairs that you stripped out of the body put back in again, so it's extra guard hairs. The wing case is turkey. And of course, the eyes are burnt monofilament 30-pound fishing line, and the tail is bronze mallard. Okay, with fine oval silver tinsel, or if you want to use fine or medium gold wire, you can use either one of those as a rib. Okay, heavily weighted to get down to the bottom. You can take I tie mine for the rivers I tie here. I put the wire along the sides, the lead-free wire for the underbody to widen out the body. I've sent some to the East Coast where they want a narrower nymph, and I'll wind the lead-free wire around the hook and dub over that. So they've got a narrower, heavy body, okay? But either way, and you can make this into an emerger by leaving the lead-free wire out of it from the underbody and just putting a tuft of CDC coming out from underneath the wing case here. Okay, this wing case is tied in, pulled over. The wings are tied in, it's dubbed in, and it's pulled back over and a little bit more dubbing. Okay. One of these days,
what part of the turkey are you using for the wing case?
The tail. And thanks for asking, because that leads me into feathers. Okay. One of the most useful birds that we have. Okay, I'll get into the turkey just a second. The most useful feathers that we have, if I was to get confined to 2 skins, would be the ringneck pheasant, both a male and a female, and then a turkey tail. Okay, if I was allowed a third one, it would be a drake mallard, because the speckled flank feathers can be dyed to just about any color you want and still retain that lovely speckling that is fantastic for dry fly wings. Okay. I mean, these days you can use wood duck like most of the traditional patterns use, but back in the old days when you couldn't get wood duck, if you knew how to dye it right, you could make artificial wood duck and do just the same thing. Make sense? Mm-hmm. those two birds right there, and turkey tail for the third one. I've got a turkey tail here somewhere. There we go. Turkey tail. Okay. And I just take a strip of that. And that one here, that strip is long enough to do at least 2 nymphs.
And so you're using that as the wing cake, because I have a ton of that. I'm out in Virginia on the East Coast. We have an abundance of turkey.
Yep. It's one of the most useful feathers. Just about every single nymph I can think of uses the turkey. One of my favorite nymphs, the pheasant tail nymph, if I don't have decent pheasant tail at the time, I'll substitute using strips of turkey. I'll take a strip about so wide, tie it in by the tips and spin it and wrap that around the hook instead of doing that with the pheasant tail. They're just about indistinguishable, and the trout don't care.
You know, it's interesting that you kind of brought up the turkey for tail, using him for a nymph body. In the if you guys ever end up doing the bronze level awards program for Fly Fishers International, there's a pattern in there that you have to tie called the gray goose nymph, and the natural substitute for it, what they're looking for is actually gray goose shoulder. Well, it's unless you go searching for Canadian geese and find where they're shedding and molting feathers, you're like, fly shops don't carry the stuff. Like, it's very hard to find. But the natural alternative is actually molted turkey tail, which I found. I was like, it doesn't even look the same. But yeah, so that's their natural alternative for that particular pattern. Anyway, sorry, just backing you up there.
No, that's great. And if you know somebody who shoots geese, you're home free. Pheasant tail. Let me get him out of the bag here. There's your hen and your cock pheasant tail. Between these two, you've got all sorts of stuff. You've got wings, the most amazing wet fly wings right there. You've got a lot of patterns call for things like woodcock and snipe and stuff like that. Well, I'm holding it right in my hand right there. Okay, because what you're looking at, even though you're looking at this, this pattern like that, doesn't look anything, to a certain extent, anything like what the snipe and the woodcock and stuff looks like. You got to remember, all you're really using is that much of it. And when it's on the hook, it's almost impossible to tell. Okay,
and
the fish.
I guess the major thing is because of the buoyancy and how it's going to hold to water. So it's going to be about the same, right?
That's what I'm getting to. Right now we're discussing looks. Okay, it looks just fine. And actually, technically, when you fish it, they don't care. If you're getting it down there, they really don't care. But yeah, if you're looking at buoyancy and stuff and the way it moves and breathes, that's where testing it to find out whether it actually will work is what you need to do. What I'm trying to do is basically introduce you to new ways of looking at your stuff so that you're not stuck with, well, I don't have snipe, I can't do it. In a pinch, you can. Okay, cool. You just might have to work a little bit just to find out. And what you do, going back to fur again, because I don't happen to have a snipe feather here. So let's say that you're doing the Adams and you want a nice blue body. Okay, so we take and we pinch off some blue dubbing here, and we hold it up. Okay, now one of the things about the fur, and to a certain extent feathers, we tend to compare the colors. Like here's this there, and I'm going to substitute. Let's say I'm going to substitute beaver for it. So I get a piece of beaver that's kind of similar color. Let's try this one right here. All right. So I've got muskrat and I've got beaver. They're roughly the same color. Okay. We compare them when they're dry. Well, what is is the fish going to come sit on her shoulder and say, well, let's take that one? The fish sees them when they're wet. Okay. All you got to do is wet them. And you'll suddenly realize they're two different colors, completely different colors.
Wow.
Okay. That's how you compare them. And then holding them up to the light. Can't show you that in here. You hold them up to the light so that the light passes through them so you can see what the real color when it's wet is. And you start looking at your fur that way. And hang on a second. Yeah, got fur all over my tongue. When you start looking at fur that way, wet and with light passing through it, you're looking at what your material actually looks like in the water. Okay, and that's why a lot of the times a lot of these synthetic furs and synthetic dubbings that they're coming out with, they're trying to imitate that synthetically in hand. Well, you don't need to worry about that. You just take your fur like I showed you, okay, and you can mix and match. That's the beauty of fur. You can mix it up yourself. A couple of different furs. If this is not dark enough, I can take another piece. If it's too brown, I can cut the tips off. Or if I want it browner, I can, you can play with it, okay? But to compare it, you get it wet and then hold it up so that this, preferably outside so you can see natural light. Hold it up so that the sun is passing through it so you can see the real actual color that it is, okay? Feathers are sort of similar. I'm not going to lick this turkey feather. I don't know where it's been.
Is it a tail feather?
It's a tail feather, yeah.
You know where it's been.
And actually, considering that this is a bird that I'm familiar with because it's one that we're growing, I do know where this one's been, and yeah, I'm not going to lick it. Yeah. Okay, wings. I alluded to wings earlier with the mallard. You can dye it all kinds of things. One of the problems I've been tying for years and years, and I still have problems with duck quill wings. Okay, we use duck quill wings because they're a wonderful color, assuming that the duck that you've got is the color that the person intended. The wonderful thing about ducks, like everything else, is there's an infinite variety of shades between what he thinks that you ought to have and when he wrote the pattern and what you actually happen to have. Duck, of course, is not usually processed as much as fur, so it does have the natural oils and things. It can be a right pain in the ass to work with. Substitutes for duck, especially on really small hooks, starling. And I couldn't find my starling skin earlier. Starlings, do you guys know what starlings are?
Yes.
Okay. The wonderful thing about a starling is it's a flying $10 bill. Okay. They're not protected in any way, shape, or form. Okay. And if you're in a place where you can shoot them, do it. They're non-native invasive. They are really, really bad for the native wild birds because they outcompete them for nesting holes. They're extremely aggressive. And like I said, it's a $10 bill. You seen what a starling skin goes for these days? I still have fur in my mouth.
Yeah, they're about $10. And actually, let that click over to my camera real quick. I'm not sure if it has yet or not. But anyway, so here, I'm trying to get this to make sure everybody can see it. Can everybody see this?
We see
no,
you.
I can see you.
You can see, oh, well, that's because I'm a genius. I got to turn the camera around. There we go.
Oh, there you go. Yeah,
there
beautiful, beautiful.
So,
now
so this is a starling. One of the funny names I've seen this called is the poor man's jungle cock.
Yep.
So, and they use it for the eyes, like on salmon flies too. If you can't get natural jungle cock, they'll use this. And and it's got some really, I don't know if you can see it, but it's got some really invigorating colors here. It goes from this really nice purple into like a dark drab olive, and then some really nice greens and even some brown feathers too. And they make, I've done a lot of this. And if you're going to tie some soft tackles that are, say, 18 to 22, this is the ticket for me anyway.
Yep, absolutely.
Really tough to do. They're tough to do. They snap over and over, so make sure you tie it in last. But this starling is, since you couldn't find yours, I wanted to jump in and show you this. I appreciate
that. Thank you. Take one of the wings there and spread it out so we can see the actual wing feathers, because that's where you take a look at the translucency of those feathers. When you're looking at a dry fly from underneath on the water like a fish sees it, you've got this lovely there's something that duck quill doesn't have, is that lovely, almost transparent. Okay? Tie your duck quill or
You know,
tie
I
your dry
haven't, I
flies.
have not actually noticed that before until you said something. But boy, and I bet you guys can't. Well, maybe you can kind of.
Yeah, I see that.
Can you see that? Can you see me get my fingers behind there? Let me see if I can get something a little more solid behind there so you can kind of see that. But well, I've actually never really noticed that. Can you see that, or does it work better with my finger?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
Now
Wow, that's really cool.
This is the bee's knees, so to speak, for wet flies. It's the best thing for wet flies, and for dry flies, it's great. And
this is why I love having you on, dude. Because now I'm gonna start tying. You know, my wife's gonna be mad at you.
Now,
I'm gonna be down here more than I should be.
I'm gonna make it worse for you, because here's the thing: as beautiful as that adult starling is, okay, if you want the most amazing bird, you get a starling that's just left the nest. It's the most amazing array of grays and slightly tans, all these different dun shades that it's just impossible to describe. Okay, and the wings are this beautiful light gray color. It's the color of most of your mayfly adult wings. Okay, they're almost clear enough to be used as spinners. They're not very durable. Okay, their duck quill is much. One of the things about duck quill is it is somewhat more durable. Take a couple of whacks at it though with a fish, and your wing falls apart. Starling doesn't even last that long, but looks-wise, it's lovely stuff. But it fishes. Even when it's chewed up, the fish just tear it apart. You know, if you can get starling, and that's why you got to get somebody like me who used to do this, who can shoot them when they come right out of the nest. Or if you can find a nest that's got babies in it, raise the babies. And if you can do it, once the babies got their wings, once the baby's got the wings grown out, just kill them and skin them, and you've got your. Seriously, juvenile starling is the most amazing.
My wife just loved that comment.
I hope I didn't offend
She's
her.
here with me.
I hope I didn't offend you there, but it's just one of the things. I mean, they're
all's fair in fly tying, man.
That's exactly right.
You know,
here's a pair of those mallard wings. Now those come up directly off the quill and just down below the wing itself. I forgot the actual terminology for what that's called.
This is from the speculum. So, and actually,
can I ask the feather question? We were talking about turkey a minute ago. So,
yep.
I have a ton of the turkey feathers like you showed a minute ago.
Yep.
But on the spread of the tail feather, down near the bottom, see these ones that's got that really pretty gold, but they're super, super thin. Mm-hmm. I have a ton of these that I keep in a box, but I don't know what I can use these for. What would these, because they're not as thick, but they spread apart really nice, but I'm not sure if it's just something I've got that I just need to get rid of, or can I use these?
Oh, you can use them for sure.
You can use them. They're wet fly wings. There's your great big wet flies right there.
Okay.
And you could actually even use those for bodies on nymphs too, and just back that up with some wire.
Yep.
And rib it with wire.
So take these and wrap these as like the body of the fly?
Absolutely.
Yeah. You take a strip, going back to this, take a strip like this, okay? Tie it in here by the tip, spin it, wrap that around, and it's just like you do a pheasant tail. Wrap that around and back it over with some wire counter wrapped, and you've got the most amazing. Let's see if I've got a fly here in my box I've done that to.
But now see, that is the great big long feathers that's coming off the tail. These are the little tiny short ones that are super thin.
Yeah.
That are
you just have to be more delicate and tie smaller flies.
Yeah.
Okay, because turkey hunting is big here, and I have tons of these.
There you go. There's one that was done that to.
Awesome. Okay, great.
Okay.
Also, legs.
That's
too.
turkey tail.
Definitely use those for legs.
Yep.
that they're coming off the side, gills coming
Yep.
off the abdomen.
Yep.
All right.
But you can take and use them for your big wet flies for steelhead. And the fibers, you'll find the fibers on those marry nicely with other fibers. Okay, so you can create married winged steelhead flies with those. I didn't realize we'd be getting off into that direction. Otherwise,
Sorry.
I'd have put some. No. I'd have put some here if I thought about it. I got these, but they don't help.
You never know where we're going to go and doing these things, man.
Yeah, we go all over the place. That's why I like doing it.
Oh, it's a lot of fun. It's kind of like the classes too, you know. It's like second hour. It's like hell. Who knows what we're tying? You know, I mean, we're tying one pattern to start with, and next thing you know, someone says, "Hey, well, I got this," and it's like, okay, well, let's tie something with that.
Does that look familiar?
Oh, yeah.
There's a muddler.
Okay.
That's a nice muddler.
All right. Now, see here.
Yeah.
That's exactly, there you go. There's your feather right there. You could do the same thing. It doesn't, this particular one's got wing feathers here, even though what the pattern calls for, at least the pattern I read, is tail feather. I prefer the stiffer wings, so I've used wing feather here on both of these. Tail feather can be used. What you're using is the tail covert, okay?
Yeah.
It'll give you a slightly softer, more responsive wing, that's all. And it'll look beautiful.
Oh,
Since
yeah,
it's got
that gold hinge to it.
Yeah, and since it's got squirrel underneath it to reinforce it, you're going to have a wing that flutters a bit. More life in your sculpin.
All right.
Make sense?
Absolutely.
So now what did I, oh yeah, there we go. All right, more questions. Okay.
I'll tell you, I want to throw one in there. So,
sure.
So we've kind of talked about, we're talking about turkey, like what Shane's kind of getting into, and I've kind of thrown out the goose thing. Sorry, my camera's not turned around. I forgot. So we've been kind of on that tip a little bit. What do you think are some other great feathers to use for body wrap besides? So you've got your turkey, you've got your pheasant, and you've got some, your goose shoulder. What are some other good feathers to use for nymph bodies, to wrap a nymph body, and or say side legs?
Okay, so for nymph bodies, this can also be done for, I've seen it done for dry flies and wet flies, is what they call biots. That's from the short side of a feather, okay? Typically it's goose because they're wide and stiff at the base down here. Where's my pointer? They're wide at the base here, as opposed, this is turkey, of course. And this is the part you'd be tying it in at the tip here and wrapping it. Okay, and they give a lovely segmented effect. You're only taking one single strand. So I would be taking and tying it in there and wrapping that forward in tightly connect, or wrapping side by side. In cross section, you'd have a body with actual gills. Okay, that's one of the reasons I don't have any goose biot or any biot patterns, but that's one material. And that's your goose, and any feather that's got a nice short side to it like that. Goose and duck are usually the ones that they use, but it all depends on how high you want that gill that's left over to stick out. Does that make sense? Yes. And if you counter, especially for wet flies and nymphs, anything subsurface, you counter wrap it with real fine wire to reinforce it, because it's a pretty delicate body. It's not one of your 100 fish flies. I promise you that. It ain't gonna. But it will look beautiful. Let's see, what else? I use also, I just, if the feather looks good, I've used marabou, where I've taken a clump of marabou, wet it down, tied it in by the tip, spun it, and just wrapped that around and reinforced that with wire. And that makes, let's see, I don't know if I've actually got one of those here. It makes for some really ugly looking, fluffy, and I don't have any here with me. Let's see, is that one? And that might actually be one. Yeah, this is, you can't really see it very well, but the body on this thing, the body on that thing is, the tail is sticking out, was marabou. I just tied it in here. We left the tail sticking out, wrapped the marabou around it, tied it off at the front, and then wrapped a hackle over it. So it kind of has a soft, I didn't pick it out very well, but it's kind of a fluffy body type thing. But yeah, I mean, you can use almost anything. And that's really what I'm trying to get across here is that because the pattern says you got to do one thing. If you're looking at it thinking, okay, well, what's the fly for? What is the material that's put on there for? What do I have that will achieve the same effect in terms of purpose and look? You can use it. We go back to the sheep's fur. You wouldn't want to use sheep's fur for a dry fly because sheep's fur absorbs water, it makes the fly sink. Okay, you'd want to use some, and with subsurface flies, sheep's fur is good, except that, well, I keep saying sheep's fur wool. Sheep's wool is good, but it's kind of coarse. On the smaller nymphs or something where you want breathable gills, going back to some of my nymphs here, going back to some of these here where you want breathable gills, maybe instead of wool, you want something like, where is it? There we go. You can see how that's been picked out. That's just hare's ears, but it's the underfur of the hare's ears that's been picked out, and it's a lot more breathable than wool. Okay, I could dye wool to look exactly like that, but it wouldn't have the same breathability. Okay, so it's a matter of what do I want? I want some gills, so I'm going to make something look like gills. Another thing I could have done is wrap a piece of ostrich plume around that. But the thing, an ostrich plume would have given a nice, fantastic looking gill, but it's extremely fragile. A couple of fish taken and hitting that, and suddenly I've lost my gills. Okay. I hope that's making sense. If I'm wondering, yeah.
Okay, I got a friend who gave me a bunch of mallard feathers.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'll be able to see these, but this feather.
Yeah.
What does that have a purpose?
Okay. I know of several patterns that use that specific feather. Generally in fly tying, it's not one. I mean, I've got some, and if I'm tying those specific, they're from Mary Orvis Marbury is the author, and the book is Favorite Flies, I think it's called. They're old, late 1800, early 1900. I think they fished them like I think they were bass flies. Great big hooks. They used the whole feather on that thing. That's about the only thing that I know of that uses those. They're gorgeous looking flies. They're not particularly difficult to tie, and partly because they're so big. But in terms of general materials, what you could do with them, it would ruin the look of the feather, and there's a lot of other better feathers to use. But if you're stuck in a pinch, you need something really long and shiny black and fluffy, like you'd put on something like a woolly bugger for a hackle. That'll make a hackle for a woolly bugger.
Oh, okay.
See what I'm saying? But at the same time, why would you want to use something as beautiful as that for something as ugly as a woolly bugger? Use woolly bugger. Use woolly bugger hackle. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know.
Cool. Thanks.
Yeah, sure thing. Anybody else? Going. All right. So let's see. We've covered. Okay, color. We go back to color occasionally. Very few furs are selected specifically for color. One that is urine burned fox fur. Right there. Okay, that's something.
Fox fur is an awesome material to work with. It is so vibrant in the water. It sheds water like crazy. It's great. It's great. Sorry, I'm out of camera. I'm like trying to do two things at one time. It's great material.
It is absolutely fantastic. And if you can get a whole lot of different color or different natural fox furs, you've saved yourself a fortune in dubbing. Okay. But the hardest one to get is real, actual, natural urine burned fox fur. And I'm trying to remember what the pattern is now. It was right in the tip of my tongue. What the pattern is that uses this. Yep. Oh, well, there goes that whole idea right there.
Well, I'll tell you one thing that they use fox fur a lot for, it's dyed, is intruder patterns for steelhead and salmon. I mean, that's one of like the #1 ingredients. That, and it's the other one that they use too, instead of ostrich plumes or ostrich herl, they use there's a specific name for it. I think it begins with a P, but it's basically South American ostrich.
Rhea.
Rhea, that's right. Stuff is super expensive, man. It's like $15 a feather. And every time you try to find it, it's like out of stock, except for natural colors. So basically what I found is that you end up having to, I mean, if you really want to have the stuff, that you've got to be willing to buy just the natural colors, bleach it and dye it yourself. But anyway, I just wanted to throw that in as a conjecture.
Yeah, no, that's a great thing. And it does feed into what we're talking about I mean, I've been collecting furs and feathers since I was a little boy. I've got just about everything there is, but I find myself standing in the middle of my tying room thinking, most of this stuff I see maybe once in 5 years. Okay. Because I just don't use it. I bought it because a specific pattern, I wanted to copy that exact pattern exactly the way it was. But when I find that I'm fishing it, or if I want to do just quick and dirty, that's it. Like for example, going back to the Adams, the hackle on the Adams, the actual pattern calls for a grizzly and a brown mixed together. It's a pain in the ass, especially with the expensive hackles these days, taking 2 hackles and matching them exactly without yanking them off the skin and losing them if they don't match. You see where I'm going with this? And then you got to do the same thing for the tail. Well, we've got these beautiful Cree birds you just use a Cree hackle for it. And there you go. Okay. You saved yourself buying 2 other, you'd buy them anyway, because, we need grizzly and we need brown. But if I'm just going to go quick and dirty on an Adams, I'll just grab a Cree, because I'm going to get it out there anyway. And the fish don't notice. It doesn't matter. So it all depends on, I guess what I'm saying is you don't have to be like me, a hoarder of everything that lives and breathes in terms of hackle and feathers and all that other stuff. It's just a matter of looking at the pattern and saying, well, why did they put what they put on there? What are they trying to do with it? Okay. And how can I work around that? You know what I'm saying? This bobcat nymph, going back to show you the bobcat emerger. This bobcat nymph can be tied just as nicely. There's your emerger right there. Okay. Can be tied just as nicely with taking a hare's body or a hare's mask. Okay. And I'm sure it would fish just as nicely. In fact, let's see, that's where's my gold-ribbed hare's ears nymphs? Here we go, gold-ribbed hare's ears nymph. All right. In terms of your colors and textures, what's the difference?
Just looking through the video, I can't tell a difference.
There's not a whole lot. And when they're wet, whoops, hang on a second, we're going to lose that bugger. Okay, when they're wet, there's still not a whole lot of difference. Okay? You've got a fur there. That's why I say, as much fun as I have with a bobcat, that hair It's spiky in all the right places. It's got all the right shades and textures, and will do all sorts of stuff if you're careful and look at the thing, okay? So taking my hare skin again, there's the animal, right? It looks like it's only got really one kind of use, okay? This kind of a brown, grizzly looking thing. But if you part the fur, you can see it's got silvery gray there that you can use. You've got a white and a ginger. You've got texture within fur, okay? I mean, when you start looking at fur as looking at this, rather than looking at just the top of it, you'll stop buying you won't be buying packets of dubbing anymore. You don't need to. You can make your own, and you can make it specifically for what you want to do, as opposed to what the person who put that dubbing together says you need to do.
Or had in mind. Yeah, I quite frequently put my own dubbing blends together. I still buy dubbing if I need specific dubbing for specific things. But for the most part, when any kind of buggy nymph dubbing, man, I just make all that stuff myself. It's much more cost effective, and you get, quite frankly, you get better dubbing.
Oh yeah. Now, one of the things, going back to texture and synthetics. Now, I'll tell you this, I'm not much of a synthetics person. I don't like synthetics. I use them when I have to, but I don't like them. A lot of the time in dubbing, synthetics are put in there to imitate the sparkle of trapped oxygen, and also to look like it's giving life, okay? Well, the way you get around that, you use a hair, or a fur, I should say, that is more crinkly, right? Really tightly crinkly, because that will trap air and give you the natural sparkle, saves you on the synthetics right there. It also, being curly like that and trapping air, it also provides resistance to water, which gives it a play, it gives it life, okay? Now, synthetics have their place, but personally, I like to have, I mean, one of the things, the reasons I don't like synthetics is because I don't want my flies lasting in the river longer than I'm going to be alive. And since most synthetics are plastics and stuff, they're going to be around forever. And that just kind of doesn't sit well with me. But, you know, to each their own. I mean, you know, it's whatever.
Well, can I ask a question?
Sure.
So let's say you're tying something and you need to use tinsel or something like that. What is a natural substitute for that? Because like me, I would rather any fly that's got dubbing, if I can take my little comb and pull it off a hare's mask, I would prefer doing that. I think it's cool to do it that way. But if I've got something for tinsel, is there a natural substitute?
Well, unfortunately for tinsel, there isn't. One of the things that I do, and of course you're going to become a competitor of mine now when I say this, modern tinsels are mylar or some form of plastic. You go back 50 years, their tinsels were metal.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Now, I would much rather leave a little piece of metal, I mean, that's what a hook is, than a little piece of plastic. The metal is going to rust, it's going to corrode, it's going to eventually get rid of it. The tinsel, the mylar, it's plastic. Yeah, it might eventually, it's plastic, what can I say? Whenever I see really old tinsels, if they still look good, I'll buy them, because that's what I prefer to use. They also, especially
so we need
for
to buy
things
like the grandma's old Christmas tree.
Yeah, or great grandma's old
Okay.
Christmas tree if you can get it. Okay.
Right. Yeah.
It also gives It also gives a little bit of extra weight. Okay, which is important if you're trying to get your nymph down. That little bit of extra weight might help. You know, because the way we do weight on a fly is we usually wrap, and I prefer lead free because it's not toxic. We wrap wire around the inside, okay, to weight it down. Okay. Putting it in the front if you want a nymph to dive, putting it in the back if you want it to kind of sit tail down, in the middle if you want kind of a neutral look, you know, that kind of thing. Maybe we wrap tinsel or we wrap wire around the outside of the body for ribbing and also for extra weight. But all of those, how you position them stuff, affects the way the nymph moves, even on a dead drift underwater. And the most neutral in terms of weight and movement is to wrap the wire or the tinsel, if it's a metal tinsel, around the outside the body, because it's not going to make your nymph sit either tail down or head down if you don't want it to. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
well, talking of speaking of tinsel, so I've got. Oh, I'm getting that darn echo again. So I've got just a question for you. So say like you got this uni French oval tinsel. Now this is not Mylar to my recollection, and it's not plastic either. This is more of like almost more of like a sewing tinsel, more so than say like Mylar. Maybe I'm off on that. What are your thoughts on that? Because like when I see, I mean, I don't know if I can get close enough. When I actually kind of stretch that out, it starts to disintegrate, and then I get down to thread.
Yeah. Unfortunately, with there's only so far you can go in terms of using it being all natural. I mean, metal, even metal. I mean, the hook itself is refined. The tinsels, uni is what I use when I mean, that's the bulk of what I use in terms of my tinsel. The one that you're holding right there is the bulk of what I use because it's readily available and because the really antique stuff is so hard to find and so bloody expensive. I mean, it really is expensive stuff. I'm not sure what it's made out of, and
I'll have to look into that because it's just something that I've actually thought about in the past. Now, I do have this. I think this is polyester. Okay, so I got a breakdown on this. So what this is by a popular sewing company. I don't know if you can see that, but it's Coates and Clark. They make silks and everything else and have for a very long time. Mm-hmm. And then what this is basically also a ribbing. It's just a fine gold ribbing. Would be something similar to like that uni tinsel. Mm-hmm. And it's a metallic gold, so you can use this for ribbing. And then on the back, if you look, it says, I don't know if you can see that or not. It shows it's 40% polyester and 60% nylon. Nylon's not going to break down very well in the water over time. Polyester certainly will, because it's more of a cotton base. But so that's another alternative you can use to say something like Mylar, which is basically it's pure plastic, and it's just, I mean, it's just not going to go away. It will, but I mean, it'll be there longer than you're alive, like Andrew said. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that in as a little bit of a conjecture, but anyway.
No, I'm just, it's actually, I didn't know about that stuff, and that sounds pretty good. And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you can't use synthetic stuff, I mean, you got to use what you got to use. But I try, at least with the dubbings and stuff, I find that I get better. I have more fun blending my own dubbings, trying to work out the kinks in exactly what I'm trying to achieve by really looking at the furs I've got. What can I do with them? Looking at the textures. How will that texture affect the movement of the fly? How will it affect the movement of in the body? Like if I want gills, do I want really stiff gills that just look good but don't actually move? Or do I want gills that breathe so that even when the fly, like if I'm casting in a lake, I'm casting gray drake nymphs in a lake, okay? The water is pretty still. I'm going to want a set of gills on that fly that even when when I'm not retrieving, it's just sitting there, breathe. Okay, so I'm going to use a finer textured fur, okay, or maybe that's where I'm going to use the ostrich, but I'm going to tie it down with some fine wire, just so that I can cast it and let it just sit there doing nothing, or maybe twitch it occasionally just to make sure that the fish realize it's alive, okay? Whereas in a river, I might want a stiffer gill, okay, because, it's got to look good fast because it's going past the fish a whole lot faster than he's not going to see every single detail. He's just going to see a silhouette. It's going to have going to be close to what he thinks so he can grab it. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, no, it totally did. And you know what? I'm going to throw in a couple other things here too that you guys can use for tensile bodies, or you know, if you're wanting flash along there. So this stuff here is called. I'm probably going to butcher the name, but it's called diamond, and this is 100% polyester. Okay, so this will break down. And this is basically, I don't know what the breakdown rate is in the water, but this will break down in like Mylar. So if you are concerned about things like that, which we all should be to some extent, you know, so this is definitely another option. And then as well as this, which is Soology, and these are just stitching threads that I've bought at Hobby Lobby. And you get these in a wide variety of colors. There's probably 50 or 60 colors of each one of these brands.
Yeah.
I've got several of them. They make great fly bodies. They're polyester. Not so great on dry flies because they absorb water, but both of these will break down in the water over time. So anyway, I just wanted to throw that in there as well.
That olive one that you were holding, wrapped around.
It's kind of a black and gold. It's like a black and gold ribbed kind of deal.
Okay, but you take and wrap that around a dark olive. Take dark olive grizzly marabou, wrap it around a hook.
Oh, that's probably gonna be killer.
And wrap that over it. A nice fat looking body, and you've got the basis for a dragonfly nymph.
Hey, there you go. That'd be cool. I was gonna say, yeah, you could totally use this for ribbing and stuff. Not gonna hold up well to a toothy trout, but you know, but it'll break down. So.
Yeah,
my point is there are options out there. You do have to hunt them down. And so like something like this, what did it say here? I've got 110 yards on this one, and I paid $3 for it. So
yeah,
I mean,
that's lovely stuff. That is lovely stuff.
You buy it, it's like this is like a one-time buy, and then this one I don't know what I paid for it, but I imagine it's about the same thing. It's probably about $3 at Hobby Lobby. So those are a couple of options that you can use for ribbing.
All right. So where were we? Back again. Fur or
well, real
color.
Quick, I want to thank. We've got some new people that joined in. I want to thank Kirk and Mike for joining us. If you guys have any questions or want to join in, feel free, pop in, ask Andrew some questions. We've kind of covered turkey feathers and biots, and we've kind of been all over the place. We've covered beaver and bobcat, and Andrew threw me a curveball. I'm like, bobcat? I'm like, where do you get bobcat? But so if you guys have any questions and stuff like that, you know, please jump in and ask. That's how we all learn. So anyway, keep going.
That's a good question, by the way. How do you get this stuff? When I was a kid, I went up to Alaska. And back then you could go to any of the fur shops up there and they'd give the scraps away. I'd get gallon bags of scraps from every single furrier in Fairbanks, every single furrier in Anchorage. I'd just hit all of the shops and pick them up. And I've got enough fur to start my own shop if I wanted to. But these days on eBay, you can get, there's furriers out of Idaho. Trying to remember off the top of my head, but they sell good, reasonable chunks of fur, something like, you know, like a piece of beaver this size. Unless you're commercial tire, which I'm not, this will last forever. Okay, certainly. That's how much beaver. That's just one of my bags of beaver. Okay, I got enough beaver here to last. I could tie a zillion flies with it. That's where I'd be getting the stuff. Bobcat, I just got that off of eBay. The pattern that I found, the actual Bobcat nymph pattern came out of I forgot the name of the magazine. It was from the early 1970s. It was one of the very first patterns that I taught myself to tie. And it's never let me down. It always catches fish. It may not be the fish I'm targeting, but it always catches something, and usually a lot of them.
So another thing that I've been really itching to kind of cover with you, and I thought would be very appropriate for this class is, so like the upcoming class that the upcoming session that we're going to be doing on the class is going to be saltwater patterns. And I don't know if you guys have got your kits yet or not, but if you haven't, you've obviously got some bucktail on the way. And so one of the things that I've recently discovered here in like the last year or so is being able to use bucktail for quill, and different things that you can use for quill. I don't know. Maybe I thought maybe you just had some insight on that.
Okay, some of my all-time favorite subsurface patterns are based on the parachute shuttlecock nymph. English pattern, it's on a curve hook, and I don't have any with me right now. I'd have to go to the other room to get them. But the pattern it is similar to the mosquito pattern where you take two moose hairs, a black one and a white one, and wrap them around the hook. Okay, except they use, I don't remember what the old pattern used because I just use horsehair, but you can use any of that stuff, different colors to wrap around a hook. What I would suggest that you do with them though is like if you're doing a mosquito, for example, with your moose hair. So you tie in the tail, you tie in the moose hair. Okay, and you're going to, if you're doing hackle tip wings, you leave those off for right now. So you wrap your moose hair, whether you're using horsehair, moose hair, bucktail, lacquer it with clear nail polish. And I know this is in direct contradiction with my dislike of synthetics, okay? But at the same time, it makes that body material come alive, and it also protects it. Because I tell you what, there's nothing worse than you tie up a lovely looking mosquito, and of course naturally the fish only bite when you've got one of it. So you've got the perfect mosquito, you throw it out there and they tear it apart, and when you bring it in, you've got your first fish on it, you bring it in and they've literally torn it apart. Well, you got one fish, great. Now what are you going to do? They're biting like mad, you don't have another one. The clear nail polish makes the body come alive and protects it a bit longer. Also with those, even though the pattern doesn't say to do it, I usually will reverse wrap really, really fine, almost hair fine, either gold or silver wire, depending on what the body color is itself, counter wrapped over that so that it holds that body together. Does that make sense? And
Yeah.
the thing is, you just have to take and tie. It's a thing. It's hard to describe how you do it. It just have to be. It's a delicate operation. You got to keep it tight without breaking it. I would soak the hairs in warm water for half an hour before you do, so they're not so brittle. Because there's, again, nothing worse than getting halfway through, going back to the black and white moose hair. White moose hair tends to break a lot quicker than, it's not as strong as the black moose hair, even off the same piece of moose hide. So you're sitting there and you're wrapping the two together and you've got almost all the way there and your white moose hair breaks. You know, soaking the moose hair first or soaking the bucktail first will make it more flexible and less likely to break, so you can get all the way to the end of the fly, tie it down, and then lacquer it with your clear nail polish, or reverse wrap it with wire, then lacquer it with a nail polish. So did that answer your question, Brent?
Yeah, no, that's actually pretty, that's some great information. So there's a couple things I wanted to just kind of throw out there that are some different techniques and approaches. So when you, instead of using your moose mane or moose hair for your say mosquito pattern, actually in my Orvis book it says to use just a excuse me, I got a little frog in my throat there, but just to use the actual stem off of a grizzly feather, straight off of the chicken. I'm just going to strip this here real quick so you can see it. Hopefully, but if you look at it, you can see how it's got white and black segments, and then you can actually just use this to wrap mosquito pattern. Now it's not going to come out as clean as using your mousse. You're going to have nice pattern shape, but you can use this, and that's actually what the Orvis book from 1978 or whatever recommends. And then so you were talking about soaking it in water.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the I guess the new techniques that I've read about and kind of learned, and I know Charlie Craven. I don't know if you guys know who Charlie is, but he's a big fan of is the vegetable oil technique, where you do a bunch of these and you just get down to the quills that you want to use, and this could be peacock quill, it could be ostrich quill, or from Hurl. Peacock Hurl, so on and so forth. But you take these and you'll put whatever you're going to use, a dozen or a couple dozen that are already pre-stripped into a little, I don't have one, but into a little Ziploc bag like this. And you add just a couple of drops of vegetable oil and let those soak for about 48 hours. And that vegetable oil will saturate the quill and allow more flexibility and movement of that quill. And stop the breaking from happening when you wrap it. To my understanding, that's a newer technique. I've only read about that on Charlie's website. So anyway, that's just a little conjecture I wanted to throw in.
Yeah, it sounds like a good idea. The only drawback I can see to it is that you would have to wrap. I personally myself would feel obligated to wrap fine wire over it, and I don't think you'd be able to coat it in lacquer because the nail lacquer wouldn't stick to it because it's oiled.
Yeah, that's for sure. That's absolutely for sure. I mean, once it's got that oil on there, I don't know how you would. I don't know any super glue that would stick to that.
Yeah,
maybe a UV resin. It'd be shelling on itself.
Yeah. No, the cheap clear nail polish is in terms of giving life to, because that's there you go. Cheap. Yep, right there. One of the most beautiful body materials on dry flies is your stripped peacock Hurl, and second to that is your stripped hackle. Heavily soaked, of course. Your quill Gordons and your red quills, the most amazing segmented bodies, especially the red quills, because if you strip them down and you're going to have a red and white, not that they're variegated like the grizzly hackle, but just the way they lay out. When you strip the fibers off of the hackle, it leaves a little bit of a white area where it's been stripped off. You know what I'm saying? And so when you wrap that, the thing is though, is you're going to, if anything from a size, like a size 12 on up, if you're going to tie bigger stuff, you're going to have to use really seriously long hackles to do it, because you're going to run out of hackle and you're going to get up into the thick stem part that doesn't want to wrap over it.
I've ran into that problem, and as well as having the white stem on the side, you actually kind of have to tie that in kind of a funky way so that when you're wrapping that quill, you're actually getting the colored side of the quill out.
Yep.
It's actually kind of a difficult procedure. Anybody that's into doing well, Andrew's kind of been following some of the old school dry fly patterns that I do, where I'd have to do that.
Yep.
And it's actually a difficult procedure to do. It takes some time and some serious patience to get it right.
Well, when it's done right, it comes out fantastic.
Oh, absolutely beautiful. And actually, I've got a couple. I don't know if I can see it. I don't know if you can see it. That's right. Yeah. It's this one, right? I don't know if I can show it to you. I can. I'll just pull it out. This is kind of like a little project I've been working on, but I haven't had a chance to do it recently. So this is the Quill Gordon, I believe. I don't know if I can zoom in or not. There we go.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So you can actually see where I've got a little mistake right there in that quill body. But boy, I tell you what, this is after like 15 tries. So
beautiful.
I finally said that's good. I got it.
Here's a ginger quill for you. And you can see where it started towards the shoulder. It started to get into the white.
It gets into the white, yeah.
Yeah. Because even, I mean, this is a size 12, and even though I'm using the longest neck hackle I could get off of that neck, it still was just ever so slightly too short. You know.
And boy, that happens too. What about soft hackles? I know we're kind of changing gears here and everything, but what about soft hackles and suitable soft hackle substitutes and those kind of things?
The best body material that I found for soft hackles is pure silk floss or pure silk thread. Either way, depends on how fine of a body you want to make. The thing with the soft hackle or with silk, though, is that it does change color. It becomes almost transparent and darkens. So you got to make sure that your thread that you're using is not going to distort the color, the final color. Okay. Now, some of the really, we're talking early 1800s wet fly patterns would wax the silk and then ever so lightly dub over it. We're talking, when you're dubbing, we're not talking spinning the dubbing. We're just talking, you've got your wax thread pinching the fur onto the wax thread, okay? Usually yellow or primrose colored silk thread, and would wrap that as a body, okay? But you can do almost anything on a soft hackle with just silk thread and your gray partridge, a good gray partridge skin. Get the whole bird. Has got every feather you'll ever need. And in terms of wing, if you're going to put a wing, there you go. There you go. If you're going to put a wing on that on that soft hackle to make it a wet fly, you can just take the old style. I'm going to demonstrate with some of this turkey here, just because I happen to have it. They would just take. We tend to think of wings as a match left and right. Back in the old days, they didn't bother. They just took and they would cut a piece that was large enough to do the fly that they wanted to do, like I've got right there. They would straighten the ends up a bit, like I've done right there. Fold it again, and tie that in. There's your wing. And on your soft hackles or your subsurface wet flies, that's all you need. And if you don't have, for example, if this was the only feather I had, I'm not stuck going, oh my God, I need a left and a right. I just shown you right there, because once that thing gets wet, all that lovely sweeping curve and stuff is going to go anyway. It's going to disappear. You see what I'm saying? It's just going to go just like that. Okay? So.
Well, that's awesome. Well, we've actually covered quite a bit of ground, and so I want to make sure that we've got about 40 minutes left or so. So I want to make sure that we open it up to you guys, and in just any synthetic, natural, anything that you guys want to ask Andrea. We may have to do another one of these because this is actually a pretty fascinating conversation. We've had a pretty good response on this one. So is there anything that you guys are wondering about? I mean, regardless of what the material is, I mean, let's throw it at him. Let's put Andrew to the test here.
Well, he mentioned the horsehair. So I did some Adams flies not too long ago, and I tied in a piece of horsehair and wrapped it for the entire body.
Yep.
And I loved how it looked. You
can't beat horsehair. You beat me to it. There is what's that pattern called? Where I put horsehair instead of the body. It's supposed to be stripped peacock herl. And stripped peacock herl's wonderful stuff to work with, but quite honestly, it's a pain in the ass because all the preparation. There's horsehair right there for the same thing. You can't beat it. And it's one of those materials. There are certain materials that just cannot be substituted. you'll all agree with me that peacock herl, there's nothing like it in terms of what it looks like on a hook and what the fish, how the fish respond to it. Ostrich herl, once again, is hard to substitute, and good horsehair, nothing like it. See if I've got a fly here that's a. Okay, here is a gray drake that I did. That's horsehair. That's 2 strands of horsehair wrapped together.
Nice.
So I was thinking, so my question is, so it worked out. I used orange, dyed orange horsehair.
Okay.
But if I had a nice piece of neutral gray, so if I was tying a blue dun variant, could I use the horsehair, a gray horsehair for that body?
Why not? Who says you can't?
Okay.
The ultimate judge is you and the fish. It's not for anybody else to say whether it's right or wrong. If it looks like the body, if you've got the natural to compare to, or if you've got a good idea what the underside of the natural, because it's always the underside on the dry fly that you're looking at, because that's the side the fish sees, right? So
right.
if the color, you hold it up and you look at it and it's like, yeah, that's about right. You tie that in, lacquer it, it looks right, and the fish says it's right, you got yourself a pattern right there.
I just like that horsehair because when you look at it, you get, when you're using thread, you get those tight thread wraps. You want tight thread, but when you do that horsehair, you actually see that perfect round part where each strand going around the hook touches. So it gives you that natural ribbed look.
Oh yeah. And if you take different colored horsehair, I become a nuisance at the local stables because I'm always there asking for different colored horsehair, and horse people do not cut the tails off the horses. They just don't do it.
Right.
Okay. I don't understand why. I'm not a horse person. And they won't even cut. I mean, I tell them, hey, I just want give me 3 or 4 strands. Because, a 3-foot strand will last for multiple flies, right? Now they won't even pull a fly. They won't even pull a hair off, but they'll let me pick them up off the floor. But you take and you get different colors together, and you get this. Now, what I've been playing with, not all horsehair is opaque. Some of it is actually transparent. Okay, and especially when you're getting into the white tails. Okay, a lot of those white hairs are not actually solid white; they're transparent. You can see through them. You take and put your let's say I want a slight pinkish cast to the body, right, or a yellowish cast. I'll tie with yellow silk and wrap one of those transparent hairs over it. Okay. And what that does is it dulls down that bright yellow tint, okay, making it kind of the waxy yellow like your dun would be, okay? And then, of course, you lacquer that for strength. And you've gone from bright yellow thread to a waxy colored, it looks more like the underside of an insect. You know what I mean?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, horsehair is wonderful stuff to play with.
Now, besides the tail, have you ever tried from the mane?
Yes, and this is where going into the saltwater stuff. I wish I had my saltwater box with me. There's a pattern called the Bay Delta Eolet, which is fantastic pattern for striped bass. That's what it was designed for. I use it though for rockfish and other saltwater fish out here in the Pacific. I'm right off actually half a mile from the ocean as the crow flies. And what I find with the mane is when tied in clumps like that as a wing, it has more movement, more wriggle, like an eel. Okay, so what I will do, the Bay Delta Eolet, is you've got it's what it is a hook with the basic body is you've got a bunch of hackles and horsehair, the black horsehair, and then some black hackles, and then a couple of grizzly hackles over that, and some big steel ball chain type eyeballs at the front. Okay, it makes for a nice, and a chenille wrapped around as the body. I wish I had my box here. I'd show you. But it's a fantastic saltwater pattern because the mane is finer than the tail. It has
Right, it's not near as coarse.
right. It has a wriggle to it, and that's what I'd be using it for. Is wings on eels and that kind of on wet fly streamer type things. The long way around to, I guess, to answering your question. Much more so than
great.
tails. I've tried tails and they turn out to be real stiff because I mean, you're using, about that much in terms of length, and the horse tail just does not move when it's that short. Mane just goes all over the place.
So the mane is great for wings.
Yep. But try to get a horse person though. They I told you they won't cut their tails. They sure as hell won't cut that mane.
Well, what I've been doing for my the tail hairs.
Mm-hmm.
So I volunteer with Project Healing Waters.
Okay.
So we also have a group here in Roanoke for disabled veterans, and it is they take them to let them horseback ride as therapy, and the veterans go in and they teach them to groom them. So I've got some guys that do the Project Healing Waters as well as going and doing the riding to some of the disabled vets. And when they're grooming, when they are combing them, anything that comes out, they save me. So now I'm going to have them do the same thing with the mane, because I hadn't thought of the mane because it's a lot less coarse, but I hadn't thought about it for wings.
Right. Now, if you want a really coarse, spiky, almost ugly body for something big that got a lot of water resistance, horse fur, especially the stuff that comes off in the winter, or I should say the winter coat that comes off in the spring. Now, horse fur, it's hellish to dub with. It's real heavy, coarse, doesn't want to dub very well, but when you get it on a hook, it makes a hell of a mess that pushes water, and for saltwater stuff, it's marvelous.
That also sounds like that might be good for pike and muskie.
Hadn't thought of that. Those are we don't have those around here.
Boy, I was going to jump in and say that, like something like a big nasty stonefly. If you get say a nice dark Mustang or something like that sheds pretty well.
Yeah.
Maybe like a real beefy body on some like number 6 stonefly in Montana in November or something.
And the beauty of horsehair is it comes in all horses in general. They come in all kinds of colors.
Right.
And it can be mixed and matched and blended. I mean, yeah. So.
Well, gentlemen, I'm on the East Coast. I have to be out of the bed at 4 a.m. So I'm going to get off here. Andrew, thank you very much. I really, really like this. And Brent, appreciate you always getting stuff like this for us. It's awesome.
It was my pleasure. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah, that's definitely we really enjoy doing stuff like this. We're going to actually try to start doing more things along this nature. We're trying to set everything up and kind of make it a little more easy and streamlined. So I don't know, you'll see what we're talking about. We're working on it. But we're going to have a very interesting final session for the year, and I'm actually going to do a Facebook Live on it, so Shane, stay tuned for that. And by the way, thanks for joining, man. It's been awesome to have you part of this conversation. I know you follow along with the videos, you buy the material kits, and I appreciate that.
My kit's already open, ready to start.
Oh, you already got your saltwater kit?
Yeah, it came in yesterday.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, Kevin got his too, but he already hopped off here. So, and Rocky, I don't know if Rocky's got his or not. He's on.
Yeah, I just got mine today.
Oh, okay, sweet. Right on. So, all right, Shane. Well, we definitely appreciate you being on here, man.
Thank you very much. You've made it fun for me. It's your responses make it so that I want to keep doing this. So.
All right, you guys take care.
Good night.
Have a good night.
Thank you, gentlemen. Take care.
So
that was Paul. Yeah, Paul, that was quick. Yeah. Hey, glad you joined us. And Mike, I know that you joined a little while ago. if you don't want to ask anything, cool. This last opportunity here for this session.
Yeah, nothing I could think of. I mean,
Okay.
I wish I would have caught the first hour.
Okay. Well, we covered turkey and goose and beaver and bobcat and but it's all being recorded, so you'll be able. Once we get it up and loaded, hopefully soon. We've been having a problem with our downloads on. Uploads with our internet. I've been doing a lot of work around the area, so like we're really struggling with getting it uploaded. But
the basic idea has just been sort of new ways of looking at your materials to make better use of what you've got, so that you don't feel compelled to go out and buy every single thing there is out there, because you may not need it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, as long as the colors match, it's all that matters, right? That and
well, not necessarily, but
as long
there's
as it repels water, if it needs to repel water, and
yeah, that's right. As long as it does what it is supposed to do, that's all that counts.
yeah.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I've been doing this for so long that a lot of it's second nature to me, which is why you guys asking me questions, pulling the information out of me is great, because I got so much that it just comes all out in a surge, and I'm like, where do I go with it? You know what I mean? I could talk to you guys for years on this stuff.
totally understand that.
So it does make it, like I said a minute ago, it's this response that makes me keep wanting to do this, because believe it or not, this scares the crap out of me doing this stuff. I'm not normally doing this kind of stuff. So,
God bless you for doing it, man. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
I've been doing. This is not at all what I had thought about doing. I was kind of doing some one-on-one coaching online, just from people in random Facebook groups, and they talked me into starting this. And so then different people kind of jumped in and chimed in and said, "Hey, can we do this?" And I was like, "Well, I guess we can do that. I don't know. Let me start calling people and asking." And then Andrew and I became friends on Facebook, and start talking. You started your Facebook group. You plug that too, by the way. It's like an old school original fly patterns. You guys would probably find this interesting. I'm a member of it. I'm a founding member, but the name is escaping me. What is the Facebook group again, Andrew?
Oh, mine?
Yeah, yours. The one that has way more wealth of knowledge of the history of fly tying than mine ever could.
The History and Evolution of the Trout Fly.
That's what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's my book. Yeah. Okay. I've been there in a while.
I'm trying to promote you.
I'm listening to what you're saying. I haven't been to the website in a while. So yeah, no, I just sorry about that.
No, you're good.
But yeah, that's the thing. Getting into those really old patterns where they didn't have access to all. I mean, they could shoot whatever they wanted, but they a lot of the times they're out there making it up as they go along, and so they see the same bugs that everybody else does, but they're looking at it. Like, for example, the standard mayfly. There's dozens of different patterns for the mayfly, using all kinds of different materials. One of the most bizarre materials that they used, which was a whole lot of fun to get, is the testicle wool from a ram. Okay. Yes, it involves shaving the testicles off of a ram. It's the most amazing yellow that you can, because the mayfly itself is yellow. Who would have thought of that? You know what I'm saying?
It's the most amazing yellow.
It is. Who would have thought of that?
And who holds the head and who does the shaving?
Well, that's it.
Yeah.
But see, that's the thing. When I get hold of this, because I'm not there when they're doing it. I just get the results. Right? I get this big glob of mud. Right? Get this big glob of mud, and I'm thinking to myself, how the hell? When he's, who looked down there and saw this glob of mud and said, well, that's yellow. But you take this glob and you wash it off, and it comes out, it's this yellow wool that's really dense, really tightly wrinkly, okay? And when you dub it onto a hook, it's the most amazing, it's beautiful stuff, okay? You start looking at the material.
Mic off, man. You make me laugh.
You start looking at materials in a whole different way when you read these old patterns.
It's hilarious.
Oh, I'm crying.
It's funny.
I think I'm better now, man. It's like you wrote that down, practice saying that to me. I was like, that was hilarious. So sorry, I had a laughing breakdown.
No, that is one of the strangest materials that I use, actually.
Never even heard of it. Yeah, that's pretty strange.
Yeah, but and it in itself is actually a substitute, because the material, if you go all the way back as far as I've been able to trace that pattern, the first yellow that they used was the throat patch on a pine marten. Okay. Well,
what is a pine marten? I don't know.
A pine marten is okay. Pine marten is an animal that looks like a weasel or a mink. Okay.
Okay.
And the problem with them is that while they all have a pale patch at their throat, not all the time is it yellow. Sometimes it's just white, and sometimes it's not really yellow. It's orange. It's extremely variable. So you may get your friend up in Scotland to shoot you a pine marten. He sends it down to you, and it's not the right color. Okay, how many is he going to shoot before you get the right yellow? Okay, yeah, I see her back there.
Oh.
Hi.
We have to give her credit too. My technical support's here. She's awesome, man. She's behind this whole thing too, and she's we're on it.
So anyway, so you got this, and then back then they're not in. I mean, their method of dyeing, they didn't have the serious chemical dyes we have today. Those didn't come about until the late Victorian, and we're looking back at the 1600s and 1700s. Okay, so to get a nice yellow, they'd have to dye it in onion skin with turmeric and other things like that, which will do it, but it's never quite good enough. And then somebody came along and looked at a ram and said, yellow.
That's it.
How the hell did they? Yeah, it's amazing stuff. And it's got this
That's
transparency
funny.
to it. It's got this, yeah.
It's like, that scrotum's hair right there is like, dude, that's got mayfly all over it.
Yeah, you can imagine
I don't see it. Is there mayfly there?
Some 17th century gentlemen are standing there saying exactly that.
Tie it onto a hook.
Yep, some 17th century gentleman saying exactly that. Just oh
right, yeah. And I'm telling you, I'm the guy that he's with. It's like, what? What are we doing?
Yeah, especially that ram there is not going to be standing there showing his balls off.
Oh golly. Oh man.
Oh, we're getting silly.
No, seriously, more people need to join these conversations. It gets kind of funny in the second hour or two of the classes too, because like sometimes there's like one or two people in there, and we tie the same fly like 3 times, and the second hour we get all crazy and do something, make jokes and whatever. So it's totally par for the course of what we're doing here. We're having fun.
Okay, and if the stuff was not in the room next door, I'd actually go get it and show it to you, because it's that good stuff. But no, I'd have to put the camera down and stuff. But what can I say? So,
well, I don't know. That was awesome. It was like a crescendo there.
It goes along with that urine burned fox. Okay. That fur, the real stuff, and I've got that bag I showed you. That fur came from the vulva of a female fox. Okay, and when she's in heat and urinating and stuff, it burns that fur, that kind of a pinkish color. That's what it's from. Okay, now who would have thought that? I don't
know. Yeah, that's why we're at. We weren't really asking you about all this.
No, but it is one of those materials
it's one of those things. It's a fly tying material, and it's actually really interesting. But it's a lot of it's just kind of crazy. Like like you were saying, like whoever thought to do this, and let's blend these colors by burning this fur with that fur, and whatever. It's
that's nuts. That's it right there. Okay. Yeah, that's not what I'm going to be sticking my, that's not what I'm going to be licking either. You know,
Come
I mean,
on.
well, actually,
You're talking about turkey tail and vulva. No, lick something. Let's see the translucency. That's the. No, I'm just kidding. No.
there you go.
No, that was awful. No, I was just kidding.
Now, I do actually have, hang on a sec. This is the fly. Here you go.
Oh, that's cool. That's it.
There it is.
Back
Right
it up. Back it up just a little bit. Oh, right there. You kind of see it all. Yeah.
You got it?
Yeah. What did you use for the wing on that?
Lemon wood duck.
Lemon wood duck. Okay, cool.
Yeah. That's a blue dun hackle, natural blue dun hackle, and a lemon wood duck, and urine burned fur, or urine burned fox fur for the body.
Cool.
And I think there's a light Cahill, isn't it?
Does that fox fur shed water pretty well when you dub it like that?
Oh, yeah, yeah. I mean, you saw how hard it was to get it wet. Okay.
Okay. Well, I'm just curious. I hadn't really thought about using it, fox fur for dry fly dubbing, to be honest with you.
Oh, yeah, yeah. It's lovely stuff. Now, the thing about...
I'm going to try that.
The thing about fox fur, I can't show you on this piece because it's just one color, but you get a good piece of fox hide and you'll have at least 3 or 4 different layers. The closest thing I can show you is something like, okay, you see how on this muskrat face, you've got the dark portion right here, you've got a light portion, and then you've got the guard hairs, okay? You can adjust the color of what you're dubbing by either leaving this light portion in or adjusting the ratio of the light portion to the dark portion, or just taking one or the other, leaving the guard hairs in. You can do the same thing with the fox, okay? If you want a blue body, you just cut the blue part off, or you can, you know what I'm saying? You can mix and match. Fox is wonderful for that. It's another one of those must-have furs.
Yeah, I'll tell you what, fox fur is fantastic when you stick that thing into a dubbing loop and use it for collars on just bigger flies and whatever. I'm not sure if you can stack it or not. Can you stack fox fur? I don't know. I've never tried it. I've always thought it'd be like a little too loose. Maybe like hand stack it, maybe the best you can. I don't know.
Yeah, I've never tried it. I know that I use the tail for foxtail, or gray fox tail for wings on rat flies. The salmon fly, the rat patterns.
No, okay.
You can also use squirrel for that, but hey, squirrel is nothing like fox.
Oh, dude, no. Squirrel's pretty. I mean, squirrel's pretty good, but it's not fox.
Right.
Yeah, I blend a lot of squirrel into my dubbing and stuff too, because I'll just take everything from about a 1/4 inch up off the tail and just take it all and put it into a blender. You know, and mix it with a little, do like a half and half synthetic or something like that with it, just to kind of give it a little shine, nymph dubbing or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, it works good.
I should send you some Western gray squirrel, because the fur there, if you blend that with, it's pure silver gray. And you can blend that with some of your other squirrel and lighten it up and sparkle it up. Lovely stuff.
Oh, cool.
We get them dead on the road out here regularly. And usually they're in such a shape, I don't bother skinning them. I just pluck them and put that fur in a bag.
Well, I don't feel so bad about seeing foxes on the side of the road now. I'm thinking about
dude, I'll tell you what, man. We get so many dead animals on the dude. Like, we live in dead animal roadkill zone. Yeah, what can you tie with armadillo, dude? Like, I was just an armadillo, like, you don't believe. One came up in my garage, like sniffing around. I was checking out my dog's water. And, like, it was like, what are you doing? But anyway, we get a lot of like foxes and well, not foxes so much, but when they get hit, their pelts are usually in like really good condition. Like, it's like they stuck their face in front of a tire and they lost, but everything else is pretty good. And I've always been like, man, maybe I should grab one of those and
Yes, you
Take it-
should.
Yes, I should.
Yes,
Yeah.
you should.
Throw it in the bed of the truck, right? Just have some
Yep.
have some rubber gloves on hand. Throw it in the back of the truck. I got a taxidermy about 6 miles up the road, and be like, hey, I need this thing.
You can do it yourself. Take and skin it.
Well, no, I can't do it myself where I'm at. But
All right.
yeah,
Because I take and usually I skin them, clean the hides real well, scrape them real well, wash them in soap and water, let them dry out, and then borax the crap out of them. I got a big sweater box full of borax. I just bury them in that and forget about them.
All that sodium and the borax draws out the moisture.
Yep. And when I finally get back to them, usually it's 6 months or a year later when I remember, when I'm putting something else in that box, it's like, oh, that's where that fox fur went or that squirrel went.
right.
And it's usually then dried. It's not soft tanned like wearable leather. It's real hard like parchment, but you're not going to wear it anyway. What's what difference does it make? But it's clean and dry and doesn't smell, and it's tanned and it's stuck to and you stick it in a bag and you've got it.
Well, you'd mentioned I forgot which kind of squirrel you'd mentioned, but so down at the local fly shop, they've got a full hide of pine squirrel. They actually have a couple of them they're like $7 or something like that, minus the tail, obviously. But and I've been thinking about picking that up, going, geez, I just that looks like a really good pelt to have.
It is.
I've noticed, and the reason being is because I've noticed recently in the last probably 6, 7, 8 months that there's been these new patterns coming out. They're like midge and nymph patterns that are a little bit on the smaller side, and they're using pine squirrel with a split thread technique to wrap a little short collar as like a hot spot on like a little little midge, not midge, but a little nymph.
Mm-hmm.
Almost like a Perdigon kind of look, but not quite. Kind of that, you know what I mean? Like a mixture between like a Copper John and a Perdigon, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's a definitely a good hide to have. I got a couple from up in Alaska last time I was up there. Shot a couple. They're great dubbing, lousy eating, but they're great dubbing. It tastes like turpentine. So
awesome.
No, it's not. It's disgusting.
No, awesome, man. You tried nature's version of turpentine. God was like, don't eat this squirrel. Use them as throw it over the wall.
If you can get the tails, if you can get the tails as well. I got a vast collection of squirrel tails because they're so useful for things.
They are too.
I use them in a lot of my, like the little trout series, the little brown trout, little rainbow trout uses bucktail and squirrel. I use polar bear and squirrel.
I've actually done hare's ear with squirrel. Just done I don't know what you call it, squirrel tail, I guess.
Yeah.
But
no,
it's a hare's ear pattern, just using squirrel. Total squirrel.
Yeah. It's one of those things where you know what you want to do with. You want to get a nymph that does a certain function. It's got a certain look to it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you tie, what material you use, just so long as it does what it needs to do. And the squirrel is a wonderful thing to do that with.
This area in Pennsylvania, there's solid black squirrels.
That's one that I want. That is one that I want. There wouldn't be any. If I was down there, I'd have a couple. I promise you, I'd have a couple.
You make it sound like you're going to the bar. Like, I'll take a couple black squirrels.
Yeah, I'm looking for natural black I'm looking for natural black and natural white.
Yeah, I'll tell you what.
Thank you.
Just last spring, I was driving down the road within a week apart, and I saw that was the first time I'd ever seen a total white squirrel. It blew me away. It was like middle of the day, and there was no doubt it was like just a regular old kind of fox squirrel, but it was like totally albino. But then somebody said it can't be albino because of whatever reason, even though they are totally white. I guess they're like whatever they are. I don't really know the whole genealogy of squirrels, but
right.
But it was pretty neat. And then I saw about a week later, I saw another one that had like a gray face and the rest of the body was white, which I was like, wow, there's like something going on here with white squirrels. Never seen it before. I've seen black squirrels, but never a white one. Blew me
Well,
away.
if he ends up dead on the road, grab him, because you can grab him, because you can do the fur is going to have all the texture and everything that you want. But being white, you can dye it any color you like, and you suddenly have an unlimited palette in terms of color. You know what I'm saying? You can do
Yeah,
it.
oh yeah, I absolutely do. Yeah, I was actually sitting there kind of pondering like how valuable is it being just completely white. I mean, like what could I do with it just being white as natural? I don't know. I thought about it for 30 seconds, didn't come up with anything good. And then you said dyeing it, and I'm like, oh man, like gee, that's like a one-shot deal.
Well, that tail also, you've got those. I mean,
Well,
squirrels.
that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, the tail.
Well, I'm talking about the whole animal. I'm talking
Yeah,
about the
well,
whole animal. That fur. I mean, that fur. Okay, that the texture of the fur. You just have to get a couple of squirrel hides, and you'll see what I'm talking about. It's amazing texture that they've got. So, but yeah, all black and all white. The two squirrels I don't have. Fox squirrel is amazing. You have them down there. They come in a variety of different colors from what I understand. We just have the ones up here that are orange. They were introduced up here a while ago, and they're bright orange. Amazing tails, especially for, again, the little trout series.
Yeah.
So
I've got pretty much an unlimited supply on gray and fox squirrel tails.
So yeah, we have those. We've got the eastern gray, we got the western gray, and we got the fox squirrel. And those buggers are always showing up dead on the road up there. Whenever one shows up, I grab it and pluck
every day.
Yep, grab it and pluck it. So.
Yeah, I was more interested in pine squirrel because I don't have any of that. I've got gray and foxtail, but I don't have any pine squirrel. So I'll have to pick up that skin. It looked really interesting. It's like one of those things. It's like I'm going to buy this, and 2 years from now I'll figure out what to do with it.
Well, you make nymphs out of it.
Well, no, I kind of get that, but it's just like finding a pattern or using it for a substitute. I mean, I'll play with it at first right away, obviously, and then it'll be put on the shelf, and one day I'll be like, oh, I have that, and this fly is going to look killer with that.
There's more room on the shelf.
Right.
No, there's more room on that shelf, honey. Like no seriously. I've got a ton of room up top. I'm starting the migration and remodeling of all of my fly tying material because it's expanding like ridiculously fast. And
but that's natural. It does that.
It's like the old movie The Blob, where like comes into town and like grabs one person. Well, I'm the guy that it grabbed him. Like I must stop at the fly shop and take all this with me.
Yeah. Well, when I was a kid, I didn't have that kind of money, so I'd go down to the. I'd go down
I
to
don't
the
have that
furry.
kind of money either, but I sure as hell act like it.
I go down. I go down to the furriers, and I just say, hey, what kind of scraps you got? And that's where all this stuff came from: beaver, mink. Mink. There's this thing that vets do. I guess PETA collects old fur coats to give to veterinarians to make blankets with for their animals. I got caught up in this about 15 years ago. When I taught this woman to tie flies. I gave her some fly tying lessons, and she was supposed to pay me, but didn't. And so she came back later with these two enormous boxes of old fur coats. And you want to talk about a variety of fur right there. If you can hook up with that kind of thing, you'll have more fur than you know what to do with. And it's usually fox, mink of all kinds of different colors, rabbit of all kinds of different colors, occasionally skunk and raccoon, and beaver is the usual. That's what I got. And some of it's really strange stuff.
That would actually kind of explain how I got this mink, but they said it's not off the hide. And then when I looked at the back of it, it's like, oh, like, is this fake? I mean, it doesn't look fake. I mean, it came from a fly shop, and the fly shop checked it out and said, no, it's real mink. It's just, but they did something to, maybe they tried to turn it into a coat or something like that, but I don't know. But it wasn't, the hide's kind of, it's pressed and has like a checkerboard kind of rough diamond shape on the inside of it. So I don't know what they did to it.
That's a piece of an old fur coat right there.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense now, because the guys that gave it to me, like, they had always been straight shooters with me, and they're like, it's free. We got it from this guy, and I was like, okay.
Yeah, well, see, what you do is you go, because the vets, the reason I got all this stuff is because PETA has just buried the vets with all of this. They don't want that much fur. They don't need boxes and boxes and boxes. And
Right.
And the vets are going, what do I do with all this crap? And of course, this lady come along and says, I know somebody who wants this stuff. I didn't realize she could give you that much of it, but next thing you know, I've got all these huge boxes of it. And I mean, big boxes, yard by yard boxes. Okay. And so, yeah, I ended up cutting most of it up and gave it to the local FFF, and for the kids to learn fly tying with. But yeah, it's a great way to come across furs.
That's cool.
So
that is mystery solved on that one. All right. That's cool.
Anything else?
Yeah, I was gonna say, any other questions? We got last few minutes with Andrew, and we're gonna wrap this one up, and we'll schedule another one for sure, though.
Oh yeah,
these are fun.
Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I learned a lot from all the conversation. So thank y'all.
My pleasure. Thank you, and thanks for making this easy for me.
Yeah, we got to do part 2. Everybody start doing research. We need full reports and really put it into the test.
I'm gonna
look up the football
whatever
thing.
genitalia you can use to tie flies with.
Pardon?
What was that, Mike?
I missed
I'm
that.
gonna research to see what other kind of genitals you can use to tie flies with.
That's awesome.
Prepared next time.
Fantastic.
Well, I can tell you, I can tell you one more. Okay. In the old days, the fly lines were silkworm gut. Okay. The reason it's called gut is because it actually was the ripped out guts of the silkworm caterpillar. They'd rip out the guts and pull it real tight. You can get about 3 feet per caterpillar, and you strip it out and let it dry, and then you can polish it, and that's how they made their fly lines back then.
Huh.
No kidding.
Yeah. Yeah, you can actually do it yourself. There's I know a place you can get the silkworm caterpillars, and you can grow them up and do it yourself. I know people that do it.
Wow. You're killing me. That's awesome though. I mean, like, it's just, again, like, who thought of this? It's like, hey, see this caterpillar? Yeah, well, I'm gonna catch a fish with this. Well, yeah, I'll catch a fish. No, I'm not putting him on a hook. I'm gonna rip him apart and stretch him as far as I can get him. And then I'm gonna grab a bug and stick it at the end of it, and I'm gonna put it in the water. You know, it's too bad Robin Williams died. He could have probably had some fun with that.
Well, we can only try, right?
Dude, like, no, you know what? That's fascinating knowledge, and I'm down to pass that on. I'm not sure that, you know. I guess if, like, I had subscribed to, like, a whole weekend adventure or something, or like, hey, come make your own, like, the original, I'd be like, okay, I'll try it. But, like, I'm not gonna go out and find a silk caterpillar. And I don't know. I'm not gonna say that I'm not going to now.
You never know.
You
never know.
You got me curious. Okay.
I mean, the caterpillars are out there, and they're
everywhere too.
Well, there's only a certain kind though. You got to use the silk moth. Okay, what they make silk thread and stuff out of. It's the same caterpillar. Okay, and they eat mulberry leaves. Although today they've managed to, I don't know if it's synthetic mulberry or something, but they've got a diet that you can buy along with the caterpillars. Because who's got a mulberry tree, right? I don't. But you can buy the caterpillars, and you can buy the food to go with them. And I don't know if it's real mulberry leaves or whatever. They figured out how to feed these things to get them to grow up. And I guess what they want them to do is get nice and big to feed to your lizards and your bug-eating, that kind of stuff as animal food. But for people who are into the Atlantic salmon flies and want to make their own gut loops for the salmon hooks, they take and grow them up, kill them at the right time, stretch the guts out, and then you take and braid 3 of them or twist 3 of them together if they're the right thickness, and you can make your gut loops for your salmon hooks with them. Or if you stretch it out real nice and tight, and you can polish them thin, you can make your leaders with them.
That's great. And you can get 3 foot out. How big is the caterpillar?
About the size of my thumb.
And you get 3 feet of that.
Can you imagine how much colon? Like, I know they're
Good
but like if you
grief.
stretch out the human colon, it's like huge.
Right. Yeah. I know. I just never. I don't know. I never thought about that. That's just insane. This is all new information to me. It's kind of weird. Can't say I wouldn't try it if I had a chance, just to see.
Yeah.
Just to say I did it.
Right. Well, that's the history and evolution of the fishing fly. You know.
That's pretty
part
sweet.
of it. So. Okay.
Well, that was pretty sweet. So, well, thanks, Andrew. Appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thanks,
Very
Andrew.
much.
Pleasure.
That was a lot of fun, and we're definitely going to get something else set up for, with Andrew again, no doubt. And I kind of give him free rein. He's like, "Hey, let's talk about this," and I'm pretty much like, "Okay, that's cool. Let's talk about this." So he's a wealth of knowledge, and it's great to have you. And thank you again.
Thank you. It'd be nice later or next time if I knew what do you guys want? What do you guys want? Anything?
Wow. That's tough. I imagine it's different from.
On the Facebook group.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's do a poll in the Facebook group.
Okay.
Throw a few topics out, and we'll do a poll in the Facebook group.
All right. Because if I have an idea where you guys want to go, if I can address it, I will. It's some things. I mean, I don't know everything, of course. I don't pretend to.
There's too much to know.
Right. But I could talk about whatever I can talk about. I'm happy to share with you guys. And if there's anything as interesting as ram's testicles or as anything like that, I'm happy to share with you.
Promoted. That's so getting promoted.
I'm going to
tonight in the talk with Andrew, we talked about ram testicles, and people are gonna be like, "What?" And it's gonna be like, "Yeah, I gotcha," because now you're gonna want to watch it. That's awesome.
Ram's testicles and fox's vulvas.
Yeah.
Somehow all those are not as funny.
It's just it's just funny. It is. It's hilarious.
Yeah, I'm going to the zoo this weekend. Like, check out the patch of hair on that one over there.
You better be in front of the right kind of crowd.
Oh, jeez. All right.
Oh, you're killing me.
That was awesome. I gotta short clip that, like play it on like all kinds of like different like Facebook groups and be like, "Here, check this out. Like, look what we're talking about." That's awesome. So it's all fun, man. It's hilarious. So, well, anyway, thanks, Andrew. Thanks to you guys for participating. Here in the next day or so, I'm gonna do a little Facebook on what we're gonna be doing for as far as like the final session for the year, which is actually kind of cool. I'll kind of give you guys a little spotlight real quick. If I can get it to show, there it is. I'll show you how to do some Christmas decorations that you can get the kids to join in and do. Easy tying stuff that you can get for cheap. We talked about kid sessions, and we just thought this made the most sense for doing like a holiday kid session. That way it gets the parents and kids and family involved and all that kind of stuff. So, and then if you guys want to get technical, I know this one is kind of dusty, but that's, I don't know if you can see it.
Your light is all crazy.
Yeah, my light's all crazy, but that's, this is one that I've done. I've produced this numerous times.
That is very nice.
And then I don't know if you can see it. Oh, thank you. But then you can see the fly inside where you get it to hang, and so it kind of looks like the fish is jumping for the fly. So I'll show you to do some cool stuff like that. It's easy for the kids to get into. Doesn't take a lot of work. And they enjoy it. And, you get good quality family time. So that's going to kind of wrap up our year this year. That won't be till November, December, but it's kind of a teaser. So anyhow, again, thanks, Andrew. Thanks, everybody.
My pleasure.
We're going to schedule another one here soon, and we'll let everybody know. And the saltwater patterns begin 23rd. a week from this coming Friday. So stay tuned for that. And yeah, we'll see everybody later. You guys have a good night.
Good night.
Have a good
See you all
night.
next time.
Thanks.